So I'll say it again. We are having cocktails at 6:30 today for everybody just here. Yeah? No, we have no mic.
So we have another one.
Yeah, thank you.
Sweet. For you guys.
Yeah, keep it down that end.
Okay.
Yeah, pass it to Chibie and then we can have this one. Yeah. We're live? We're just waiting for the go-ahead and then we'll get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the penultimate session here today at Afro Can. Thank you for joining us. We are going to talk about focus on emerging producers and co-production, and I have 4 wonderful guests with me today. I'd like to start by, first of all, my name is Simone McIntyre. I'm an actor and producer from London, and I'd like to start by asking our guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your work. Faire une introduction et un peu de ton travail. Okay?
Start. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Love Nwigwe. I am a Nigerian and a writer and producer of a film. I'm a Canadian, and I have come from Canada to talk about my film. It's on racism, and it talks about racism from daycare to adulthood. Thank you.
Merci, mon nom c'est Gabriel Agbaroun. Je suis réalisateur et producteur béninois. Je suis aussi ici pour parler de mon film, parler de la promotion de ce film et partager une expérience magnifique avec tous les participants de Afro Can. Merci.
This is Gabriel from Benin, and he is here also as a filmmaker to participate in Cannes and to talk about his latest project.
Hi everyone, my name is Chibie, Louis-Okoye. I'm a Nigerian woman living in Canada, and I'm here to talk about my first film, Kofa, and also to talk about my next TV series project.
Hello everyone, I am Coréon. I am from Angola, but currently based between Portugal and the UK. I am a producer, director, as well as model manager. I can explain more about that later on.
So, as we are focusing on co-production itself, can you all just quickly tell me how co-production comes into play in your work? Is it how you start thinking before you've even got your project, or does it always depend on what you are doing? Depending on what country you are in. Would you like to start?
Yeah, in my world, it's both, because I found out that in the process, then you start developing more about how this is going to go. And as a writer, it's like a baby that you have conceived and you're birthing this. You watch it and you see if it's going in the right direction or not.
Je veux savoir, quand tu penses de faire une coproduction, c'est quand tu as l'idée ou c'est premièrement l'idée et puis il faut faire une coproduction?
Bon, je pense que pour moi, tout dépend du projet, tout dépend de l'histoire et où est-ce que cette histoire va vous conduire. Et aussi, il faut dire que beaucoup de productions aujourd'hui ont besoin de coproduction pour voir le jour. Et je pense que ce soit une coproduction sud-sud ou nord-sud, c'est très important pour un film, pour une production. Merci.
So he said it depends on each project individually, and it's usually dependent within your country, right? Dedans Béni, with North-Sud, ce que tu as. All right. So he's talking about crossing the border to the south of the country and the north, and that's how he views co-production.
Yeah, so for me, it's not a way I've always thought either. It took me leaving Nigeria and moving to Canada to realize my Nigerianness and my Africanness. So when these kinds of themes come up in the stories, you have to realize that I know I have something I can bring back home to my home country, Nigeria, and there's something that Nigerians can bring to Canada and the rest of the world, because for me, co-pros is not just Canada and Nigeria, being Nigerian and Canadian, but with the rest of the world. So for me, it's first of all the story. You're thinking of what kind of story you're going to tell, and because my stories are cosmopolitan, I tend to think of how would I do a co-pro with them, and how do I leverage the different types of resources that I can get through a co-production, either from Nigeria or the UK or any other countries that have co-production treaties with Canada. Nigeria doesn't have one right now, but we have other ways we can leverage resources to do co-pros.
I think as my work is still very much based in Angola, sometimes in Mozambique and the Portuguese-speaking African world, I'll have to say that thinking about co-productions is not a realistic way of getting work done in my market, because they're not really available. And I would like to point out that people often forget that, yes, Africa is very diverse, and there's minorities within Africa. Portuguese-speaking countries are a minority, and oftentimes we're kind of not really remembered unless there's some sort of cute dance trend or content trend that comes from our end of the world, and then people remember we exist. So in terms of co-productions, in my experience, I have been part of a few, but mainly with Portuguese-speaking entities. And I will say that the biggest challenge in terms of doing it is like, yes, of course, I think pre-pandemic, I was more so based in Angola. Now I travel a bit for work, but most of my production is there. The biggest challenge is still actually getting them done, because for one, I would love to actually do more co-productions, like intra-African co-productions especially, regardless of linguistic barrier, because I think that is a silent barrier that is there when we talk about intra-African co-production. In terms of co-productions with other parts of the world, when it comes to the opportunities that are fortunately now starting to open up, specifically in not only Angola, but some of the Portuguese-speaking region, I think people who do want to do co-productions, they do really have to think about who the co-producing person or body is, because unfortunately, most of the co-production opportunities available in our market fall into two categories. Either they are fellow producers from other parts of the world, or Africa even, that do have some funding, or they're foreign bodies who have a very specific political agenda, and they want a very specific kind of storytelling. So you have to, so in those cases, you do have to decide, is that the kind of stories you want to tell? But when it is with a colleague, that does make it, I would say, easier, because it is about finding commonality, but those opportunities, I would say, are probably the least available, at least in our market.
So you find that can be quite limiting if you have it working with a country that says we actually want to tell this kind of story. It has to.
Most of them do. Most of the films, for example, I'm not sure if there's anybody else from a Portuguese-speaking African country. I think most anyone? Raise your hands. Yes, amazing. So yes, for example, one of the things that most people kind of default to is the CPLP fund, which is for the CPLP is sort of like an organization of Portuguese-speaking countries all over the world. But again, most of these kind of stories that they're looking for are very specific and often have a very specific, I would say, for lack of a better word, political style that they're looking for. And if you don't fall within that category, then you don't often get picked. For example, for myself, I love making feel-good content. so it doesn't always fall under that. And most of the co-productions I have done have been on the commercial end, either with TV broadcasters, but it's usually mainly co-producing or other production companies that have like-minded ideas or like the kind of content or my aesthetic. And they think it fits with theirs. So for example, the ones that I've done mainly so far have been many years ago with SPTV, which is a Portuguese production company. We did a series project for Portuguese TV, RTP, and then a few others with a few Brazilian broadcasters, but mainly on, I would say, a local producer kind of role. But it was more, again, based on they liked my aesthetic, the quality of work, and kind of needed some cultural competency as well to get the African side of the story that they're telling correctly in terms of accuracy.
So following on from that, asking the other members of the panel, do you find that there are common themes that you find easier to move forward with if you are doing a co-production? Are there common themes that other countries want to come on board with you and get made, which might not necessarily be your passion project? Have you found that so far? Has that been an obstacle? Est-ce qu'il y a des thèmes que tu trouves que sont plus faciles pour faire une coproduction qui intéressent les autres les pays avec qui tu travailles?
Yes, for me, this is very, very important and major because my film, for example, is on racism. And when I was doing it, I was discouraged by many people. And I was told that this is Canada and producers and funders are purely white. They don't want to hear this kind of stories. But I was inspired by the death of George Floyd, who lost his life because of his skin color. And like I've lived in the white man land as a teenager. So I know the pain of racism. I married in Europe and gave birth to children. I've been to the universities. I've been discriminated against. My children have been discriminated against. And when George Floyd was killed, like heartlessly, I decided to take the risk. And many doors were shut against me because of the topic. But by the grace of God, I got Tell Us Story Hive, liked my story, and funded the film. So I can say, yes, your topic is an obstacle, but you have to focus on your passion, on what is it that's making you move, what is it that you want, what's your story about. If you're passionate about it and you keep building, keep trusting, I believe that you can do it.
Ok, je pense que ça va dépendre du sujet, parce que c'est tout à fait sensible. Lorsque vous abordez un sujet politique, ce n'est pas pareil que si vous abordez un sujet lié à l'action ou au suspense, un truc comme ça. Donc ça va dépendre toujours du sujet. Moi, pour ce qui est de ma part, pour le film dont nous parlons, le film Injustice, nous avons eu des coproducteurs de la France. Et à un certain niveau du scénario, nous avons dû retravailler des lignes pour pouvoir nous adapter. Parce qu'il ne faut pas aussi indexer directement un certain nombre de personnes. C'est très important. Et aussi, vous avez entendu parler de Woman King. Le film Woman King, c'est basé sur une histoire des Amazones au Bénin. C'est l'histoire typiquement du Bénin, ça vient de chez nous. Alors la production, ce n'est pas forcément une coproduction avec le Bénin, mais la production a travaillé avec des historiens, travaillé avec des Béninois pour la sensibilité de l'histoire, pour ne pas dévier. Moi, je pense qu'en termes de coproduction, ça va toujours dépendre du sujet et comment est-ce que ça touche à la sensibilité de l'histoire.
So I think he said it depends on the topic, really, and if it's political, that tends to be the stickiest issue. So if you have something like an action or something, you know, less like an action or comedy, right? It's easier. But he gave and he's currently has a project with a French producer, right? And so they're finding ways to make sure that they can adhere to what the French produced company requires. And so he gave us an example of with The Woman King, although it was not a co-production with Benin, they did actually consult with historians because the actual story is based on the people that came from that area, right? From Benin, am I right? The Amazons. And so they had to adhere to the truth because it was based on truth. So in essence, what he's saying is this is how he works and how he assures that he meets the requirements that are needed for co-production, right? Cool. Oh.
I have a bit of a different take. So if you're starting out and you need funding to do your projects, you can fall in love with the story that they've presented to you. You can't always be so purist. I mean, you could, and you could wait to make your movie in 10 years or whatever, but you have to look for opportunities. And sometimes because you're also creative, you should be able to find points of alignment in stories and insert yours if you're approached for a co-pro, for example. For my film, like I said, Nigeria and Canada are not an official treaty co-production, or not official treaty co-but my project is, and I am the Canadian piece of it. So you're looking at it all here. And it's all because of the creative ways we thought, okay, who's over there? What can you bring to the table from that perspective? It's a topic on, you know, kidnapping, really, which is a very prevalent issue in that part of the world. And there's activism about it. We weren't waiting for anyone to fund it. It was self-funded. And so you have a team in Nigeria doing all that groundwork. I was there on ground for the very beginning part, just till before they started shooting, and then came back, you know, got to look for more money and send it back there because your dollar stretches a lot further. So that was really the strategy, was where can we stretch the dollar? Yes, the story was very important. It is an important story, but at that time, the decision really was not, because we could have made the story in Nigeria. We didn't necessarily need Canada in that sense, but it became, okay, this is the bunch of money you have, where can you stretch it? And then you start to align the different skill sets, you know, that you can get from Nigeria and the skill sets that we could get in Canada, and voila, I'm in France.
You don't?
Oh, yeah.
The question
Yes.
was about.
No, because I think I answered the question.
You did actually, yeah. You were the reason why I asked the question. Sorry. So, how does the panel think that markets like Cannes can assist you further to push the envelope? To make what, so that, like you said, you don't have to be compromising and coming from somewhere where you're thinking about what the other party requires, but you're actually making the project that you want. In French. Quand tu penses que les marchés comme Cannes peuvent encourager les producteurs émergents faire des coproductions qu'ils veulent?
Well, coming to Cannes, for me, I have hopes that there will be people who want to see this story and who want to support what is going on, because we're in 2023, and for example, I was coming into this building and it was me and a white lady. We were coming in together. We came, I showed my card, she showed her card, she walked in, and I was asked where I was going. So it's a reality. Racism is real, it's at your door, it's all over the place. I am believing, because my film is short, it's 17 minutes, but I have the story ready to do a future and of 50 minutes. I am trusting that I'll get funding from Cannes to make the full film. Last week, the film got awarded in Paris, and I wasn't expecting that. And it's not just, it was launched on the Black History Month this year, and I've been awarded in the US. Who would think that you would get an award in the States for such a film? I've received 2 awards in Canada for excellence in creative arts, and many schools, including the universities, have approached me to use it to educate the community on what the effect racism is having on the economy, because blacks are fully loaded with skills, academics, and so much to offer to the community. But when we are discriminated against, the economy loses. The economy is at a loss. You're discriminated against for your name. You're discriminated against just by seeing your color. And it is a big loss for the economy. So I strongly believe that someone will see that this is real. And I also believe in King Martin Luther King's story that said, there's always the right time to do the right thing. I believe this is the time to start doing the right things all over the world. Thank you.
Ok, merci. Moi, je pense que le marché de Cannes, par exemple, c'est l'un des rares moments privilégiés où des producteurs peuvent se rencontrer, où on peut venir avec un espoir. L'espoir peut être en papier ou en image et en son. Et c'est aussi un moment où on peut rencontrer des distributeurs pour distribuer son film en salle, en VOD ou à la télévision. Moi, je pense que c'est un moment de rencontre, de brassage entre professionnels du cinéma, et où on peut dénicher aussi des coproducteurs pour son prochain projet. Et c'est aussi intéressant parce que aujourd'hui, nous avons besoin des uns des autres pour évoluer dans le monde du cinéma. Et Cannes, moi je pense que c'est venir à Cannes et présenter son projet, présenter son film, c'est une opportunité. On peut même rentrer en carte de visite. Donc les gens sélectionnent des cartes de visite, c'est très intéressant. Et je pense que, oui, comme je le dis, c'est vraiment un moment privilégié, le marché de Cannes. Ouais.
He said markets like Cannes bring a wonderful wealth of opportunity to meet other creatives from the whole spectrum of the industry, from distributors to specialists in marketing, and it just becomes a natural thing that you meet somebody who can help you move your project forward. And so he considers it a privilege to be here and present his project.
Yes, I agree with Gabby, everything he said. So I'm here as a real world delegate with the Canadian team, and I'm very grateful. Yes, thanks. Round of applause, please. And I'm grateful to be here for that, because this really is the biggest in the entire world, and it is a privilege to be here. Just like Gabby said, there are tons of opportunities, tons of distributors, salespeople at the markets. You know, you're walking down the Palais and you're seeing a lot of different businesses that have sprung up just because of Cannes. Inevitably or serendipitously, you can find opportunities. You can find the right person to work with. I have meetings with salespeople. The thing is, you get a chance to find out what these distributors or these buyers are looking for before you jump and start polishing your story and finishing it up and getting it made. Unlike before, when you would go make a film and try to find who's going to buy it. So now I have that. You know, I have something very special and dear to my heart. It's a TV series. It's an African futuristic sci-fi drama. And if you know of any other one, come tell me, because I feel like it's probably one of the first that people would see, and my goal is to pitch it. My goal is to go to distributors, go to salespeople, talk to other creatives that I'm sitting at the table here with. You know, I'd never have met Gabby, for example, if we didn't meet ourselves here, and find out what he loves, find out what Coréon loves, and just connect. My fellow Canadian comrade here, find out what we all love. Can we work together? Is there something in our story? So it's really a melting pot for like all the different artists, creatives, and business people. And as producers, we are business people, and we have to find the people who are gonna buy our product before we start making it, to test, to see if that's what they want. So that's, you know, what I think Cannes can bring to the table, and Cannes is big. So, you know, where else than here to make those kinds of magic happen?
Well, I agree with very much what everyone said, but the one thing that I could add is I believe that Cannes and other film markets in general have one thing, which is I think sometimes we focus on the art of filmmaking or making series, etc., and we forget about the commerce of the industry. That is why it is an industry. And also sometimes we get stuck in our own creative bubble, but without being pushed out of our comfort zone, we cannot be efficiently creative. And I think meeting people who are like-minded from various parts of the world will also help us in both things. One is we will learn more about the commercial aspect of it. We will interact with people who have commercial insights, but we will also potentially meet other creatives who we can connect with and work on projects with, who have different perspectives that will complement ours, or skill sets that will complement ours, and vice versa.
What are some key challenges that you all find being an emerging producer in general? Des obstacles, principes que tu trouves comme producteur émergent?
Okay, so well, I've been told so many times by a lot of mentors to just drop the name emerging. First of all, everyone's emerging until you have some sort of blockbuster. So we are producers, you know. You can't call somebody, oh, you're an emerging adolescent or an emerging adult. You're just gonna adult when it's time for you to do that. And your products will speak for themselves, right? Sometimes we're one film away from the next big person who's not emerging. But the obstacles that you say is, again, where's your slate? What have you done before? Can I trust you? It's a business, right? We're talking about bottom line. You know, can I trust you? Have you done this before? You know, do you know how to work with numbers? Can you pull funding? Can you make all these kinds of things happen? And can I trust you with, if you're a producer for hire, for example, can I trust you with a certain budget that you will deliver a product, a film within a budget, you know, or coming under the budget, for example? So I think it's usually, you know, putting the carriage before the horse, saying you want me to have these things I've done, but you've never quite let me show you that I can do it. So those are the challenges. Just like any kid that's out of university or college, they're like, oh yeah, what's your work experience? But I just got out of college. If you didn't give me an experience, a chance, I'm not gonna have that experience. So you find that we have to scrap, bootstrap, and try to make something that speaks to our art and speaks to our business acumen, and then use that as a calling card. And that's why we had to struggle to make that first film, because the goal really is, now you have a calling card. You can say, we're in this industry, we have something to show, and we really are professional. And another thing is, as a producer, sometimes you don't have anything to show. You're actually, doesn't mean you're not a producer. You are producing. You just haven't birthed the final product, the final film. And films take time, TV series take time to develop. So it won't stop you from being a producer, but again, people wanting to put the carriage before the horse. So that is the challenge, and we're just like bidding time and waiting for when we'll be able to say, oh yeah, we're finished, here you go, this is my work, I am a producer now. But yeah, it's really catch-22 there, yeah.
Well, I think you're correct in, we have to drop the emerging producer, but as a producer from a quote-unquote emerging market, I can say a different thing, which I think doesn't apply only to producers in emerging markets, but just overall, particularly when you're trying to make things that will, or that hopefully you want to cross over into the mainstream, whether it's regional mainstream or international mainstream, which is pigeonholing. A lot of times, Whether it's because of how you present ethnically, or your gender, or where people perceive you as coming from, oftentimes you are pigeonholed, which means that, unfortunately, there's some expectation of bias of what you're supposed to be making versus what you're capable of actually making. And I think that is a big challenge, is how to actually navigate around and get over that bias, or finding the people, bodies, whoever it is, that actually will see beyond that to actually help you in your path to actually making the work that you are capable of and that your natural talents, not whatever the preconceived notion is. So I believe that is a very real, I would say, business handicap for most producers. And I think all of us have one. It doesn't matter where you come from. And I think that is something that we need to be aware of, that barrier can exist for any producer, but especially for up and coming, or if you are from a market that is newer to the international conversation or the regional conversation.
Sure. Did you want to?
For me, everything they've said is real. Something I would like to add too is the confidence to tell your story, because in the process there's the tendency to blend, so you might lose your story. So it becomes a challenge for you, because you're really trying to be genuine, and at the same time you're new, so you don't know what should I take away and what should I retain, because you also want your film to be relevant to your community, or especially now to the world. So that's a lot. And I had the problem too during my production, because Telos gave me a mentor that is similar to what I do, that makes films on racism. So there were places where she wanted me to change, but I had to do another meeting and explain the purpose, that I really wanted that scenario to be visible. And in the process of reasoning, she said, yeah, that's good. And when I produced it, like the report I've gotten, that particular scenario, because it's police, and they are real true life stories, I needed to show the police part, because it's still happening today, and it's happened in my community. And I wanted to show it, and I was questioned, because of the police uniform, might be contradictory, but I got a similar police uniform, not the exact Canadian one. I got it made, and I was able to still project that scene without losing the story. So these are some of the things there that you really get to face.
Merci. Je pense que si je dois ajouter quelque chose, c'est que il n'y a pas d'obstacle ou de succès sans obstacle. Ouais, je pense que tout est un défi quand on est un producteur émergent. Moi, je pars de mon expérience. Nous avons tourné mon dernier film au Bénin, en France et au Togo. D'abord du script à l'écran. Nous avons plusieurs étapes qui peuvent constituer un grand défi pour un jeune producteur ou un producteur émergent, parce que vous avez une histoire, il y a un côté marketing qui vient aussi avec votre projet, parce que vous devez convaincre quelqu'un, lui dire « Ok, ça c'est important, ça nous devons le faire ». Quand bien il nous dit, écoute, cette partie, est-ce qu'on ne peut pas l'enlever, ou vous devez avoir les arguments pour convaincre votre vis-à-vis, parce que c'est ce qui est important pour votre projet. Et comme elle a su bien le dire, ça peut dénaturer votre histoire. Donc je pense qu'à chaque étape, c'est un défi pour une production, et il faut surmonter les obstacles. Absolument. Merci.
So, I think he said there are no successes without obstacles and challenges. And for example, he's told me about, c'était ton projet? Or, okay, well, his project, when he had to have his project reviewed by the marketing department ahead of shooting, and they wanted to remove certain things and change things to fit what they thought would sell, and he had to make some compromises. But in all has said that this is necessary to find a way to compromise and get it done. Chibie, did you want to say anything on that?
I think I was the first to go, wasn't I?
I did it again. So, do you want to quickly each tell me about your current project? I know you've kind of briefly told us, but just tell us where we can find it and see you, and all those things.
So my film is called I Can't Breathe. And as I said, it was inspired by the death of George Floyd, and his last words before he died were, I can't breathe. And it's on Telus Optic TV and YouTube. It's been premiered, and it's, I have the 1 minute pitch and the 17 minutes. But I have the full film written. But I'm also working on a future project which is called Becoming, because I really want to bring out the fact to encourage the Black people that it's hard to make it when you're in diaspora, but you don't give up. You have to go through the process until a time where you will actually become, and we keep becoming what we want to become. So that's my future project. Thank you.
Tu as compris. Parle-nous de ton projet actuel.
Ok, là nous sommes à Cannes, nous sommes venus avec un projet de film long métrage que nous avons sorti officiellement l'année passée, qui a fait le tour des salles de cinéma Canal Olympia, qui a été sélectionné au festival francophone d'Acadie au Canada. Et maintenant, nous travaillons spécifiquement. Le titre, c'est déjà Injustice. Le film, c'est Injustice. Pourquoi Injustice? C'est parce que c'est l'un des principaux mots qui mine le continent africain. Ce phénomène est à la base de beaucoup d'inégalités observées dans la société. Et si on n'y prend pas garde, ça conduit à la haine, à la guerre et pire, au terrorisme. C'est ce qui se passe aujourd'hui. Nous avons essayé d'éclairer un peu les gens sur ce sujet. Et là, nous travaillons aussi sur un projet de documentaire fiction sur la route de l'esclave. Vous savez qu'au Bénin, Ouida, c'est l'un des grands ports négriers de l'histoire. Et raconter ce point de l'histoire inconnu encore du public, c'est un défi que nous avons décidé de relever, et je pense que ça va être un très bon projet. S'il y a des producteurs dans la salle, nous sommes intéressés. Merci.
Comment s'appelle l'autre film? Injustice s'appelle après? Okay, so he has a feature called Injustice, which is doing well on the festival circuit. It's been selected for the Francophone Festival in Canada. Yeah? Oh, ça s'appelle quoi? Festival francophone du cinéma d'Acadie. FICFA in Canada. Wow, cool. And then he also has a docudrama. What is it? Qui s'appelle quoi? La Slave Route. La route de l'esclave. La route de l'esclave. Slave road, something. Yeah. C'est fini? C'est complet? No. Oh. Okay, so he's in development on a documentary drama on the slave route in Benin. Okay, very interesting.
All right, so the name of my film is Kofa. It's a Hausa word that means the door. And it's a psychological thriller that deals with very sensitive topic and subject matter in the northeastern part of Nigeria. It deals with kidnappings. It's done pretty well on the continent of Africa. The African International Film Festival, we took home the Best Feature Film Award for that. We took home Best Screenplay and Best Actor, and we were nominated for a bunch of other awards. We also won the World Trailer Awards that just took place in Portugal in February. We were the best trailer in the African region. And we also have recently been nominated for African Magic Viewers' Choice Awards. a couple of awards there. So it's doing pretty well. We do have sales agent, you know, from the US that's representing us in the African market. And we're still in talks with them. So it's not yet available in streamers. That's the goal, to eventually, we might not go through the theatrical route, but that's the goal right now, to get us into streamers. And then from my current film that's in development is an African futuristic sci-fi drama that poses the questions, what happens when imperialism and colonialism wants to return to Africa for a third time? And it's called, yes, there you go.
Wow.
So it's and when I say a third time, I'm talking about in this day and age with everything we know and with all the internet. And that's when you know that there are powers that be, and some things are not, they're far that meets the eye than, you know, what you can see or talk about. So it really poses that question. It's really about activism and politics and technology meets with African spirituality. So I'm exploring a lot of those themes. It's in very early development, and this is part of what I've brought to the festival as a pitch, and try to get that series into proper pre-development and get it scripted and all that stuff. So, you know, a few years, you should be hearing something about that and know that you heard it here first. And I think it's something that's going to be pretty groundbreaking. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I don't really have any projects here. I do have a few things that I am developing. However, I've been doing mainly production consulting, as luckily there has been starting to get some investment, mainly from regional players in the markets that I operate in, which is mainly Angola and Mozambique. So I've been doing a lot of production consulting for a lot of fictional, especially series projects over there. While I'm working on my own scripts and pitches, and I am working on a new documentary project. My previous ones were about pop culture and fashion, African fashion, and its place in the world. So I am working on a new documentary project as well, and that's ongoing, currently shooting it actually.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience for the panel? No. Yes?
Thank you. It is Gabriel, right? I remember one of the questions I heard the King women. So my question is, the way they made that film, most of us or a lot of us did not agree with it. So I was wondering, did he agree with that or no? My name is Laila Ibrahim. I'm originally from Sudan. I live in London, and I am making the first animation film about Kushat, the queen. Her name is Amani Rinas. I want to do it in our way, in our sense. But most of the fund I'm getting is from Europe and Arab countries. So I want to highlight that. Where is Africa? But my question really go back to the Women Warrior film.
Tu as compris?
Ok, merci beaucoup pour la question. En ce qui concerne le film Woman King, on sait que c'est un blockbuster que beaucoup de gens ont aimé, mais l'une des batailles, l'un des combats que nous menons aujourd'hui, c'est de raconter nos histoires de notre propre point de vue. Je ne sais pas si vous comprenez ce que je dis. Raconter nos histoires de notre propre point de vue, hein, our point of view. Yeah. Donc c'est pour dire que quand le film Woman King est sorti, beaucoup, en fait, au Bénin, ont trouvé que bon, c'était pas la vraie histoire. Hein, la vraie histoire, ça a été même contesté. Mais le problème est que pour une production pareille, ça aurait été entre guillemets une coproduction avec le Bénin, pour que les Béninois soient plus ou moins impliqués dans l'histoire. C'est vrai que des gens, comment je veux dire ça, des personnes lambda ont été pris comme consultants, mais aujourd'hui, comme j'ai dit, l'une de nos batailles, c'est de pouvoir raconter nos propres histoires, de notre propre point de vue. Parce que quand ce sera toujours les autres qui ne viendront pas nos histoires, ça va toujours passer un peu à côté et ça va frustrer des gens à la base. Je ne sais pas si vous comprenez ce que je dis. Donc, c'est ça un peu le défi. Ouais.
Donc, tu penses que ce n'était pas représentatif de ce qu'ils veulent voir les Béninois?
Oui,
personnes de Bénin.
En fait, l'histoire réelle, l'histoire vraie, la vraie histoire. Ce qu'ils ont fait, c'est un beau film. Ils ont pris un petit pan de l'histoire qu'ils ont développé à leur manière pour faire un beau film, un blockbuster. Mais la vraie histoire est là, hein, qui n'est pas forcément celle qui est racontée en fait au cinéma. Je ne sais pas si vous comprenez ce que j'ai dit. Voilà, merci.
So really he's saying the bones of the true story are actually there, but they've taken the bones of the truth and turned it into Hollywood style. So of course there are people that are not so happy, but in general the fact that it's a point of view from Benin in the first place, it's something that I think makes a lot of them smile, that they're actually represented in the first place in the mainstream. So it's like taking the negative of maybe it's not 100% truthful, but understanding that it's putting them up there, out there. Yeah? Like Braveheart. Okay, cool.
En fait, ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est que le Bénin, c'est le berceau du vaudou. Vous savez ça? It's the birthplace of voodoo. Yeah, it's the birthplace of voodoo, Bénin. Donc, il y a beaucoup d'histoires, many story, wonderful story there. Donc, aujourd'hui, Hollywood a le regard sur le Bénin et veut prendre beaucoup d'histoires pour en faire. Moi, je pense qu'aujourd'hui, nous devons nous rendre compte qu'en collaborant ensemble en Afrique, des co-productions intro-africans, nous pouvons parvenir à raconter nos propres histoires, de notre propre point de vue, our point of view. Voilà, c'est what I'm saying.
So he's saying that Benin is the birthplace of voodoo, and so Hollywood are now trying to capitalize and make stories based on that. But actually, what he's saying that can be done is that more co-productions within Africa itself to share those stories. And I think we have no more time for any more questions, but we have cocktails. So I'd like to thank the panel. You were great. Thank you, and thank you to the audience. So much. That was very cool.
Fantastic.
It's what we need upon us. Let them come together with the unity among us. Unity wise, it's a unity. Yeah, no, this is a good work. You know what I'm saying? Utengano udhaifu, tukisimama tutoe uvivu, utoke ni ubabaifu, brother utakwama.